And with that, I'm very pleased to be joined by the sister herself. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Well, you wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be talking about this story if 27 years ago your journey didn't start by answering a call from a Sister Roulette. Talk about what that open call was for and how it got you to on the path that you find yourself today on.
Sure, that's a wonderful memory for me. Sister Elaine Roulette is also my community, a sister of St. Joseph, and she was doing extensive work inside Bedford Hills Correctional. She was the real pioneer, visionary for creating children's focused programs for the mothers inside the prison. She sent a notice out to the community for sisters who would be interested in opening up a home for children whose mothers were in prison. And I was very happily in the world of education, but I was really struck by the letter, and something in my heart and soul said go to see what's happening with these children, because I couldn't imagine being separated from my mother in that way. So out of curiosity and a lot of other spirit directions, I went to the meeting, and I went to the second and the third. And at the end of the third meeting, Sister Elaine very simply said, only if you're really interested in doing this, come back to the fourth meeting. So I really reflected, prayed, and decided that I would indeed really do this with the group of 3 or 4 other sisters from my community. And that's really what happened. It brought me inside the world of Bedford Hills, inside the world of prisons, and meeting women face to face who really had made poor choices, but really were very, very anxious to change their lives and knew what their choices had done to their children. They were filled with grief, they were filled with regret, but they also were filled with a sense of hope for a second chance at life.
And you saw and have spoken about the huge costs on so many levels of the disconnect between the child and the parent, and talk about in many ways how that bore out in the name of this, because it's not our children, OUR, there's an H in front of it. And talk about the significance of the hour as that 60 minutes.
Yes, and that was deliberately chosen by Sister Elaine's sister Jean Roulette, because the hour of the lives of the children that we work with, it's affected by the hour of separation, the hour they can visit their mother in prison, because in Rikers Island it's 1 hour, in the state it's a few hours, but then the more hopeful hour of reunification and moving on with their life. So it states our mission.
Many people may have heard part of this story. The Times wrote a great piece on it, the Wall Street Journal. You were honored by the White House last year. But having seen your operation, one of the things that struck me is this is not just a giant kumbaya moment. There are expectations, there's rules, there's second chances, and sometimes third chances, but you don't just extend your hand without expecting them to grab it and take the opportunity that's given here and to really make the most of it. And talk about that, because people use the word tough and associated with you, and they mean it as a compliment, because you can't do this if people don't get, I guess, the structure that they never had, right?
That's right. It's very important when we welcome women into our homes and into our hearts, we have expectations that they are very serious about doing the hard things, making the sacrifices that will help them put their pieces of their lives together. So we have case managements on staff, a wonderful supportive group, but really demand that they start out in the house doing the things that needed to be done, the chores, learning how to take care of their children, learning how to take care of their chances of cooking and cleaning and doing all those things, and then also showing up at a certain time to the Working Women's Program, making sure their children get a daycare at times. And for many of them, that's a hard learning, because structure maybe have been the prison system, but that's not internalized, that's external. So they need to internalize a structure that they know is healthy and is productive for them. And if they're not ready to do that, and everyone isn't ready to do it, then we have to ask them to move on. But for those who really buy in and really learn, and we give them opportunities to make mistakes, they're really ready then to have a future, and we can be there for the support that they need to do it. But they do the hard work.
We're going to introduce our audience to Ms. Pinkney, an amazing woman here and a huge part of your organization. And she's going to share her story about how literally you fished her out of a crack house. And she said it herself. It didn't take the first time, second time, but she got there. And if you want a poster child of how this thing can work, I think she'd be it. But put a face on it for the audience. Who are these women? They're black, they're white, they're Hispanic. They have one thing in common, though, that they've had a hard life before they ever come to you, right?
Yeah, they're women of all colors, creeds, backgrounds, but for the most part, they've come from families where there really wasn't a good, healthy, nurturing family life, and they say that themselves, and their stories have to be respected, each woman's story, but the commonality is that their lives were really just open-ended, and nobody really cared for if they went to school. That's a common denominator, the poor education, and then that got them into the streets because they had nothing else to do. And from there, it ended up very often in drugs. Most of the women that we work with in our children and work with that meet inside the prisons really have addictive histories, and that addiction very often led to the crime or whatever that would be involved in. So, they have to look at what brought them to prison and then really make the hard choices and get the help that they need to make sure that won't happen again. And most often that revolves around making recovery skills and keeping that in focus, getting an education, getting job training, developing a work ethic that many of them don't have, to make sure that this is going to be the foundation for their future. And that's what we're there for.
I love the story that people don't necessarily love it when it's the middle of a work day and they see you coming, because you don't want people there. You want them finding work here. Yes. Eventually you want them setting up their own lives. It's a great, it's a great stable house or community you've built for them, but at a certain point you want them to sprout their own wings, right?
Absolutely. They have to buy into it, and really, once they do that and they get a taste of success, it's amazing, because then the little things mean so much to them. I can meet them on the street and they say, gee, I'm really tired, Sister Tesa, but I worked hard today and I feel good about it. And I say, that's exactly what it is. Now you can have a well-deserved rest at night, eat, enjoy your children, and then get up the next day and do the same thing. It's the repetition, and life can be repetition and monotonous for everyone, but in the end there's a sense of fulfillment, and that's what I see and encourage. But again, it's made me realize the word success happens in so many little ways. I just said one of our women got word yesterday she made her GED. Well, that was as if she got, the Academy Award, and she came running down the street, and then everybody rejoiced in the house with her over that. Or somebody ended up with custody of her child. When I was leaving today, someone said, Sister, my son's coming permanently for the weekend, and then he's mine forever. Those kind of moments are really the milestones that are celebrated that lead again to greater.
Well, if you ever go to the sister's office, you'll see a few things. You'll see cats, and you'll also see pictures on the walls and pictures of kids.
Yes.
Every one I asked you about, you said that one got a full ride to UNC. Yeah. That one's going to Fordham. Many times the first children in their families that got through college, and you just imagine the stories and the adversity, not just their moms had to go through, but the kids themselves, and that they come out on the other end of it amazing. I mean, that in itself is a miracle.
It is, but the mothers are so much more committed to the value of education and structure once they get it for themselves, and then their children really, they make them step in line. So we've had wonderful successes over the years of children of mothers who have done very well. And of course, the happiest people about that are the mothers and the families themselves, and the community of our children. Nothing goes unnoticed, you don't go,
you've shed tears of joy. You've also cried some when things didn't work out. But overwhelmingly, if you look at the numbers, it has. Now, I've had this conversation with a lot of folks. We work with Hudson Link, which works to educate inmates behind bars, nonprofit, private donations, and all the rest. But still, some people say, you know what? They had their shot. Why spend time, let alone effort, throwing good money after bad? Talk about why you believe and have seen the power of redemption, and why these aren't people who, through their own fault and their own admission, screwed up, but we ought to basically wash our hands of them. Why should we care?
Well, I don't think there's anybody out there who can say, use your words, screwed up. We all mess up at times. We all make poor choices. But for the women that I work with, they've made a choice that brought them into the criminal justice system. Much of that is driven by addiction. And so they didn't get we have to look back and say, maybe we can do it a different way and give them more help on the outside so that they don't have to go to prison. But that being said, and we can't change those systems now, they're human beings. They're people and women and men who deserve the right to rebuild a life. Once they acknowledge the fault, you don't punish people forever. And that's the problem, that some of our criminal justice system, we're looking at it as a, a punitive thing. There is a redemptive issue here. There is a thing of rehabilitation, getting back on your feet, admitting you make a mistake, and then doors should open to give you the opportunity to do that. I mean, that's what I believe in my heart and soul. That's what I see in the lives of the women I serve, that it can be done, and it should be done. This is an investment in human beings and their children. And that's really what we
and the audience is going to see some of those faces and some of their stories in a minute here. But I'll only say this much. Take it for whatever it's worth here. If you walk in and you not only see the people, but you see this isn't a free ride here. You got to earn your keep. You got to keep your nose clean. You got to try. And for some people who've been dealt the worst hand, to come out on the other side of it with a winning hand is just really, without exaggeration, to me, a miracle of the human spirit. Finally, if people want to help, and certainly you're not above getting some help here. They can do it in a few ways, right? Whether it's contribution, volunteerism here, or either just gifts, right?
Our Children stands as a testimony to people's goodness from all over the city, the state, the nation at this point in time. And they can do it certainly by money. We need money to continue to grow and to improve what we do and do it better and do more of it. Volunteer services. We have all of our programs have volunteers helping out, from daycare to thrift shops to working women program. And then also stuff. We have 3 thrift shops, and we're always in need of people's handouts or furniture or those types of things. And we also need people's prayers to keep us going and to pray for the women who really struggle each day to do it right.
Well, like I said, if you want to know a story or you want to know something where you wonder, well, will I get a return on investment? This program, as much as any I've ever seen, does it. Sister, thanks so much. And the folks are about to see of Anita Pinckney and her story, like so many. You want to talk about beating odds, you're going to see it for yourself. Sister, thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to Our Children. And I invite all people to come and see. Good words. Thank you very much. God bless. Thanks, Richard.